Hello and welcome to Bruno's Geek Reviews. So I'm going to start a new series of videos, which are going to be called How to Not Be a Bad Roleplayer. And now you might ask yourself, why not simply call them How to Be a Good Roleplayer, or tips for roleplaying, whatever. Because I'm not going to touch the subject of how to be a good one. I think that comes with experience and maybe how comfortable you are acting around other people and stuff like that. Anyway, and there's a lot of advice online on how to roleplay and things like that. But I want to specifically address things that you shouldn't do as a role player, whether you're a player or the game master, whatever. Just things that I personally encountered in my years of role playing, and that either as a player or as a game master myself really turned me off from the game, took the fun out of the experience, or it was just awkward or things like that. So some of these things might be obvious to long-time players. Other ones might even disagree with me on some aspects, but whatever. I'm just gonna say this from my own point of view, and that's what it'll be. Feel free to disagree or leave comments or whatever. Anyway, so first of all, this one should be obvious, but apparently it isn't. To give some context, the last game I game mastered a few months back ended up it was a mess. The players were really, well, not all of them, but let's just say they gave me a really bad experience. They took the fun out of game mastering for me, and it took me a few weeks to wanna do role playing games again, and I'm not doing them with them anymore. So it's kind of what inspired me to make this video actually. Just apparently seeing the things that people do in role-playing games that it goes without saying maybe they shouldn't be doing or stuff like that. So anyway, without wasting for time, I'm going to address the first one. The first one is actually be respectful of the other players around the table. What does that mean? That means, for example, if your character is not in the room, in the story, if you're at the table but your character isn't there, or for whatever reason you can't really talk or speak, let's say your character is paralyzed on the floor, I don't know. It's okay maybe to start texting on the side in the meantime, or do stuff discreetly, sure, you don't have to just stand straight and sit straight and stare at the wall or something. But don't be distracting to other players. Don't do that. You can use your phone, for example, in my games, and again, rules might differ for every person. Some people might like to just play it loose and play role-playing games with, instead of roll as in R-O-L-E, they play roll as in R-O-L-L, and people are metagaming the whole time, and metagaming being using player knowledge as character knowledge, or just not really doing a story but more for the fun of running a dungeon or whatever. Fine, but in that case, don't even watch this video, because this isn't addressed at R-O-L-L playing. This is addressed for role players as in R-O-L-E, playing a role. Anyway, and the role R-O-L-L representing just people who just want to roll dice. Anyway, okay, I digressed a little bit. I tend to do that. So what I was saying, don't be distracting to other players, because, for example, you might be texting a little bit. That's fine. First of all, don't do it if your character is supposed to be there. Don't start texting, and you might do it from time to time. If you're waiting for a message from someone specifically for something, or but don't spend the whole night texting back and forth with someone as you play. That's very disrespectful for all the other players. It's distracting. Now, if your character is not there but you're sitting at the table, fine, whatever. But don't start, for example, then playing video games on your phone, which make noise, or don't start let's say there's more than one player who doesn't have a character present in the scene. Don't start talking between you while the others are trying to play, because again, that's distracting, and to do a role-playing game, you need a certain atmosphere. You need to be in a mindset, and you're playing a role. You're acting actually, improv too. And if you have someone kind of like breaking the fourth wall constantly, they're talking about whatever. Oh yeah, dude, did you see that movie? Yeah, blah 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 blah. And you're trying to play your character, and you hear that on the side. Uh, it breaks. Like, if suspension of disbelief is hurt, you don't get into the game as much. You get distracted. So don't do that. If you need to go to another room or what, or if you want to stay at the table, then just be quiet. Don't distract people. Um, of course, it might get boring. The thing is, even some game masters will even ask players to leave the table and go to another room if there's a scene where they're not part of, to avoid meta gaming, especially in games where players can double cross each other. So it's kind of makes sense to do that, and it might mean that sometimes some players might see very little playtime in one game session. That happened with another group I was with, and that actually, I told the group, like, very well, you wanna split the party. If you can do that, but then don't complain if sometimes you don't get as much playtime. That's all. Anyway, that was me. It depends on every person and what they prefer. Um, and some groups might prefer to simply everyone stays at the table, even if their character is not there, even if the other one's trying to double cross them, and trust each other not to do any meta gaming. That's fine too. But what I mean is, in the end, like, don't get impatient because you've been waiting. That can happen. It'll happen. Be mature about it. Don't be distracting. Think of it. It might sound kind of like an exaggeration, but think of it like if you went to the theater and there's actors playing their parts. Would you, from the crowd, start talking between yourselves, start texting or whatever, and then the actors are trying to do their job, but they keep listening to you on the side? Or even if you go to the movies, that those jerks who don't understand that other people have paid to see a movie and not to hear them, or not to have like their cell phone screen flashing in front of them, or so that's one thing. If you want to avoid being a bad role player, how not to be a bad role player, advice number one is don't be distracting and be respectful to other players, and don't whine if you have to wait. That might happen. Be mature about it. The spotlight is on another player, then hopefully it'll be on you next time. Of course, now it has to be addressed. Like, it could happen that maybe the game master isn't being unfair, has favorite players, and is giving all the spotlight to them or whatever. But that's something you should deal with the game master personally, or with other players, whatever. But like, do it maybe after the game or stuff like that, And I'm going to assume during this series of videos that other people are doing their job right, that the game master is doing his or her job right, and in that sense, of course, sometimes players can start to be problematic because there's a problem inherent to the game itself. That maybe the game master is not doing a good job or is being unfair. Okay, that can happen, but I'll address those as game master problems, like as things that game master should not do. So, because I can see like maybe someone commenting like, yeah, well, maybe I get bored because the game master is always putting the spotlight on one player, and so of course I start doing something else after a while because it's been 5 game sessions and I've played like 5 minutes and during 4-hour sessions, or I don't know. Yeah, okay, so that may be a problem with the game master, but then at that time, like, you know what? Even then, don't be a bad role player anyway, and try to solve the problem not by like doing the wrong things, but by addressing them politely to the game master. Ideally, unless it's a situation that you find unfair where the character might die because of it, ideally do it after a game or before the next game or in between games. That's perfect. I think that's the best part, because after a game everyone's kind of like tired and everything, and so it might not be the best time to discuss it live. And before another game session, sometimes what might happen is if you had a problem with a certain aspect of the game, maybe the game master still planned it the way they were going to initially, which includes that problem. Or so talking it out between sessions, and maybe you'll find out. Sometimes there's a reason. I remember this one time where I had players who were unhappy because it was D&D, and they weren't happy with my session because there was no combat in it, which I myself don't see as a problem so much, in the sense that the game sessions we had were 3 hours and a half. So sometimes, how can I put this? We couldn't do everything, you know, like game sessions usually ideally should be like longer than that. So sometimes, like if I wanted to cram some story in there, I had to just take one session to do it. So, but that's one good thing. Like the players told me, I explained to them, well, okay, but I understand that maybe you're expecting a fight and everything, but I was planning for the long term. So I explained why I did it, like why. Well, and also from my own perspective, a game session that doesn't have a fight is not necessarily a bad thing, because you know the idea of role playing goes beyond just like what you're fighting, what you're killing, and stuff like that. Anyway, but again, digressing a little bit. But what I mean to say is, like, when you talk it out and you explain things, instead of acting in a frustrated way, just talk with the game master or other players, and it might actually fix itself like that, instead of like not paying attention or whatever. So that leads us to another thing. I mentioned not paying attention, and again, this is going to be a thing where people are going to disagree with me, but I really don't like when people start drinking alcohol at the game or smoke, if you know what I mean. Why? You know, listen, people, you know, do what you want on your own time. And I'm not saying someone couldn't, like, maybe drink a beer or two during a game. I don't mind. It's not a thing where I'm, like, against drinking alcohol, or, you know, if someone wants to smoke on their own time, whatever, you know, it's their own thing. But my problem is that very often, it's like, people who, like, they'll come up with stupid reasons for it. Very often it's because they might actually be... Okay, there's different factors. One is when people think that because you're with a group of friends, for them, automatically, it's kind of a thing where, oh, well, obviously we're going to drink and smoke, if you know what I mean. And that annoys me, because no, not every context calls for that. And they kind of like, but those are the kind of players that maybe you don't really want in your game, because I think those are the kind of players where more often than not are there because there's a group of friends together and they want to be part of that. They're not really interested in your game, they're just interested in being with a group of people, and they think it's cool, you know, whatever. And also these days, you know, there's this mentality where it's kind of like trendy to be a geek, and everyone likes to say they're a geek. Well, not everyone, but anyway, a lot of people like to say they're a geek, but they're not really. So playing D&D is one of those things where, you know, they might like to say, oh yeah, you're totally playing the D&D, man, like I'm a true, and then yeah, they show up there. It's more for, it's kind of like a trendy thing. I don't know. I'm not sure when it became trendy to be a geek, but it's actually annoying me a little bit. But I think I've written articles before about that. You just look at my blog and search faux geek, you know, FAUX and then geek. I think I put a tag like that, so you'll find some stuff I said about it. Anyway, so yeah, or otherwise people for whom the game might be fun, but it's not enough. You know, they still have to go to those things that they link in their minds as being fun. You know, alcohol or smoking. And the problem is, or whatever, or maybe they say stuff like, oh, well, it helps me get in the mood for a game. To which I'll say, like, seriously, if you need alcohol or whatever to be in the mood for a game, if you can't just be in the mood for the game by yourself on your own, again, maybe, you know, maybe they're at the wrong place. Or some other people are simply like, that's a little bit worrisome, but as far as smoking went, again, if you know what I mean, I had two players who were constantly, like, every game session they had to have a moment to do that. So that was annoying because, well, that already is just like they couldn't not do it at that point, is my opinion. But I don't want to get into that. That's not what my series is about. But anyway, what I was leading to say is how to not be a bad role player is don't start doing these things where your attention will be lessened, won't be what it should be. And I remember one clear example, like, and of course they love to say, no, it doesn't affect me. Like, well, no, I'm paying, like, no, I'm paying attention. Like, whatever. At some point, if you drank a certain amount of alcohol, or whatever, you know what I mean, blah blah. You're not gonna pay attention, not as well as you would otherwise. And I had one player. What happened was their characters were supposed to like go on a boat and cross a continent, and go to another, across the ocean, and go to another continent where they would find a weakness related to the bad guy they were facing. It was a really powerful bad guy, and in this other continent, apparently there were some clues to how the bad guy came to be, and maybe some clues to defeat him. So that was like a huge, important part of the story, and that was also a big deal because that meant they were going to have to take a boat and cross the ocean. Like they had spent the whole campaign so far in that one place, and now they had to leave it. So it was kind of like, it was a big deal on many levels because it meant, first of all, it meant like they were gonna go to another place. It meant also a chance to defeat this bad guy that was overpowering them so far. It meant they, for a while, would be a seafaring adventure, which was a change of pace. It meant a lot of things. So that it's what I mean to say is, it's not one of those things that any player might have for a moment, like, oh yeah, fuck, I forgot, sorry. No, it was really significant. And then there was a player whose father had an important position in the city, who they could go see that character's father and ask for a boat, basically. So the characters go, and I mean, 5 minutes after they learn that they have to do this, the characters kind of like agree to it, and they go see the father, and the character who has to ask his father for a boat starts in character, and then it kind of like devolves. It goes like, yes, father, I have to ask you something. I completely forgot what it was. Player goes like that and thinks it's very funny. And of course, I know why the player forgot that important part of the story. And that's very insulting because I'm sorry, but as a game master, you spend time preparing the story, you spend time preparing. I hate players who don't realize the investment that game masters put into a game. It's a lot of work. I don't mean to make players feel guilty when I say that, because obviously I like game mastering. I like playing and I like game mastering. I'm one of those who likes to do both things. They're different. They're fun in different ways. But when you're game mastering, the thing is, it's no longer fun if players can't appreciate the effort you put into the game for them. I mean, I love, there's a reward for me in that. I love seeing players interact with each other, and I'll come back to that another time, but I'm not one of those game masters who is there to tell his story and then like other players kind of have to follow it. No. I love it when players do stuff I didn't predict for, and which again, I'll also have to talk about players who expect certain things. Anyway, I digress. I have a lot of material planned for more episodes, don't worry. Or worry, I don't know. Okay, so the thing is, I hate it because then for him, he was not at his best, attention-wise, because of obvious reasons. And that was just funny for him. Oh, well, I completely forgot what the whole thing was. And to me, it's kind of like, oh, well, wow, I can see the efforts I put into this campaign, this story, and this new event is really appreciated, So, I don't care what you do on your own time, but unless it's a whole group who doesn't mind, if you're very casual in your playing, then yeah, sure, do whatever you want, drink whatever you want, and the story will be a mess and no one will remember anything, or keep telling yourself that you can do that and still be as attentive as you would otherwise be. Right. But I'm sorry, no, it's not true. It's not true. It's, and again, maybe some groups won't mind, but I hate it when a player makes it so they're not going to be paying attention. They're going to be fooling around, and because I put effort into this. Which leads me to the next thing, which is very linked to what I just said, is respect the fact that the game master put effort into the game. I remember one time when that same player's brother didn't show up for a game, and it was one night a week at at this hour we meet. So every week, okay. And the brother wasn't there, and he said oh well, he spent all night playing League of Legends, so now he's sleeping. He's too tired to go to come. Wow. I find it that so disrespectful, because if he knew that we had a game and he kind of went fudge it and spent all night playing and went, oh yeah, whatever, I'll sleep in the day and too bad for that game. No, you had you agreed to participate in the game, and I from now on I'm very clear about it, because it seems like role players these days don't want to scare off newcomers, and are always kind of they're always saying stuff like no, it's okay, you can play casually, it's fun, blah blah blah. No, I'm not on that stance anymore. That stance went a long time ago. I brushed it off because I see it doesn't work. I'm a serious role player, and one person I knew put it very well. They say, for example, let's say you're playing a sport and you have a group and you're playing a sport every weekend, and yeah, it's just a game, but if you don't play it right, or if you show up late, or if you don't show up, or if you're not taken seriously, or if you start drinking and whatever and it affects your gameplay. Yeah, it's just a game, but why show up at all in the first place? And other people are going to let you know. They're going to tell you. It's the same thing for a role-playing game. If you're going to do it right. And for me, that's how it's going to be from now on as a game master, because, like I said, that group had sucked all fun out of me. No casual players. If you want to be a casual player, then join when the group does maybe a one-night session. Maybe they take a break in their campaign to try out a new game for one night. You can join those. If you're going to be a casual player, you're not going to be an appreciated player. Don't show up, because it's a mentality that they had, that they could show up sometimes and other times not show up, and whatever, it doesn't matter, it's just a game. When convenient. Maybe if the other plans show up, they might go do something else instead. No, because the game master spent maybe an hour, 2 hours more preparing the game for you, butthole. And then if you don't care and you don't show up, and I remember this, and the worst part was when I was giving XP. And I actually mentioned it. I said, yeah. And I told the guy, yeah, by the way, don't write XP on your brother's sheet, because he's not getting any. He didn't show up. And it's not because, it wasn't because he had to go see a doctor, he had to work. No, because there's good reasons to miss a game, of course. I'm not saying otherwise. But that wasn't one. That wasn't one. That was very disrespectful, because we all agreed to meet, and everyone had said yes for that day of the week, that hour. And then the guy just looked at me like I was a douchebag, because I wouldn't give XP to his brother. But am I supposed to reward him for not giving a crap about the game? No, I'm not. So, and that's very linked to, basically almost it's very linked to what I've been saying so far, the other two. It's kind of respect other players and the game master, be respectful, treat it seriously. It's a game, but if you're not going to do it right, don't show up. Or find a group of players who won't care. Make sure that you're all on the same casual level, and then you realize how well the game goes if everyone's like that. If everyone's like, oh, maybe I'll show up, maybe I won't. And another thing is maybe you have that attitude, but you have to realize the game master can't have it. Because what if it's the game master who doesn't show up that time? There's no game. So it's doubly insulting for the game master because of that. Because he can't do that. He has to be there. And maybe he prepared something for your character and you didn't show up. So that's the thing. Be respectful. Don't be a casual player. I'm sorry. You know what? I'm taking a stance on this. And for example, a lot of people, so many role players are concerned about welcoming the new players. It's kind of like the comic book geeks who are kind of like, oh, we have to make the stories accessible. No, I'm sorry. You know what? I've lost that. I used to think like that a little bit. Now I've lost that attitude completely. I'm kind of like, if they're interested, if someone is really interested, they'll get on board. They'll get on board. Don't worry. When I started reading comics, I didn't even have Wikipedia and Google. And when I started, I'm a huge Batman fan, and I started reading the comics. I was what, 6 years old, and I became a hardcore Batman fan at the age of 8. Well, I was before, but comic book wise, I mean, like, started getting those comics when I was 8. And, but, you know, I didn't buy them often, and when I started reading them, like, the funny thing is I didn't read English that well. So anyway, when Nightwing showed up in some comics, because I didn't buy them like month after month, I would buy every so often. So the first time I was exposed to Nightwing, who's the first Robin as an adult, I didn't even know who he was. You know, that's the thing. I didn't go, oh, I don't know who this character is. I cannot read this story anymore. Comics are so hard to get into. No, I just understood, oh, well, it's one of Batman's allies. That's it. So role-playing games, it's the same thing. You know, if you have someone at the table, and they go, the rules for this game are so hard, I'm out of here. Well, okay, bye. If that person didn't have the patience, they probably weren't going to stick around anyway. That's what people need to understand when they... If you want to, for example, if you want a rules-light system for your role-playing games because you prefer to not have to memorize all the rules and you prefer to be more loose with how they work or improvise stuff and, you know, or there's lots of reasons why you would want a rules-light game. But I find that one of the reasons that rules-light games are mentioned that I always find are bullcrap is when people go, oh, it's perfect for newcomers. I'm sorry, that's... If someone is interested in role-playing, they'll be interested. They'll be interested. They'll want to learn it. And if they didn't even have patience to... That's not, you know... No, for me, no more casual players. Now, next time I prepare a game, I'll just say it right. Like, you're either in or you're not, you know. It's just a game, but if you're going to do it right. Or don't show up. Because I don't want players anymore who won't show up all the time when... I mean, there's like if someone tells me, well, I have to go to work, my boss needs me to replace. You have my blessing. I'm not an idiot. You have to work. You know, there's good reasons to miss it. I'm not like saying there's not, but there's also stupid reasons. There's also disrespectful reasons for everyone involved at the game table. So yeah, I think, you know what, I'm realizing that the whole thing of what I'm saying now has an overarching theme, which is be a respectful and attentive player and take it seriously. If you're gonna, you know, spend your time doing it, do it right. So anyway, I think next episode I'm gonna touch upon some other aspects. Namely, I've been very concerned with players in this episode. Next episode, I might talk about game masters a little bit, kind of like where they can go wrong too. You know, and basically that's it. This will be a series of like how to not suck at role playing, and I don't know how long it will be. As long as I have ideas or memories or stuff I have to share about how to not be a bad role player, I'll keep doing it. And I guess at some point I'll have said everything I need to say about that one aspect. So I don't know how long this series will last, but that's the first episode, and I hope you liked it. And please leave some comments, or even, hey, if you want me to address some things that bother you in games that people do, or that, you know, you can leave it in the comments in the YouTube video, so I'll gladly address them. Okay, thanks for watching.